Hi everyone, my name is Deanna and welcome to my channel about stories that happen in life. Sit back, pour yourself a hot drink. I think this is going to be very interesting. Well, before we start, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a lot of new and useful videos. Already at the third meeting, Ira became a lover right in the back room where they changed clothes. Daria was brought up in an orphanage. During the war, when there was a bombing raid, their house was destroyed, her parents were killed, and the girl was evacuated from the city and brought to the orphanage. There she lived all her life. When it was time to graduate, she was offered a house in the village. The girl did not refuse because she had long wanted to have her place. She dreamed of studying, but there was no opportunity. Although the orphanage offered her to enter the local technical college, she did not want to and refused. "Hello," she heard when they first came to see the house. "Good morning," the girl replied cheerfully. A woman stood outside the house. "Are you coming to visit us?" she asked. "Yes, the state has allocated a house. Now I will live next to you." Dasha opened the gate and entered the fence. Not to say that the house was new, but everything was neat. The girl entered and realized that now her adult life begins. "Well, you come in, if anything," said the neighbor, and left the house. Dasha was left alone and immediately began cleaning and washing windows. As she thought, she did everything to make her home cozy and beautiful. "Nadezhda Petrovna," Dasha shouted from the street near the neighbor's house. "Yes," she looked out the window. "I baked a cake here. Maybe we can sit down and get acquainted," suggested the girl. "Yes, of course. Come in. I have some talika." The woman was glad to have guests. They sat in the kitchen, ate pie, and drank Nadezhda Petrovna's talika. "Tell me a little about this village," Dasha asked. "What to tell? There are almost no men. The young people are moving away, but we live and work," said the neighbor sadly. "But nothing, everything will get better." Dasha was in the best mood. "You know, the local post office needs a letter carrier. Do you want to go to work there?" the woman asked. "If it's possible, of course, I won't refuse any job." Daria agreed at once. The next day, she and Nadezhda Petrovna went to the local post office, where a letter carrier was needed. The girl was hired. She even liked going door to door every day, delivering letters. She saw how people were happy when she came to their house. It was as if life had gotten better, but Dasha dreamed of a big family. She wanted a husband, and even more, she wanted a baby. Daria barely remembered how she lived with her parents, but there was one memory in her mind. How her mother had put a beautiful dress on her, and they had gone outside together. Dasha continued to live in the village. She liked the way people treated her. Everyone was friendly. You could always go to the neighbors to ask for salt, sugar, and other products. They also came to her. Sometimes, when there was a holiday, all the locals would gather in the street. There was also a local club, but rarely anything went on in it. Then Dasha remembered how in the orphanage they put on plays, concerts, and organized dances. She came to the head of the club and asked to be made artistic director, but only in the evenings. She did not want to leave her job at the post office. The director agreed, but only on weekends. Then Dasha gathered the women and suggested that they form a local choir to sing songs. On the first Saturday, when Dasha took over, the girl organized a dance. Everyone went to the club, old and young. It was fun. Music was playing. Everyone was dancing. "Well, Dashka, you've made some fun for us in the village," said her neighbor when they went home. "And why stay at home? We need to have fun somehow," said Dasha. Now every weekend in the club were concerts, albeit small, where the local choir sang. And the girl also recruited a group of children who studied in elementary school and began to put them dancing. Dasha liked everything very much, especially working with children. "Hello, Daria." The same Nadezhda Petrovna came to her. "Hello, I wasn't expecting you at all." It was obvious that the girl was going somewhere. "You're so perky. You can do anything. You know how to do anything." There's a boy in the village who is fond of the accordion. He learned it himself, plays it himself, but he doesn't have an instrument, Nadezhda Petrovna said. And then what did he learn and play on? Dasha didn't understand. His grandfather left him an accordion, so he played on it, but the instrument is very old, many keys fall out, and in general, it is impossible to play, sighed the neighbor. Dasha called Zakhar to the club that same evening and he played it for her. She realized that the guy was talented. Of course, he had no education. The girl set a goal for herself to get the boy an accordion. And here she is already in the local village council, writing a petition to the chairman to allocate money to buy the boy an accordion. He agreed, but not to buy a new one, but a used one. Dasha began to search and decided to go to the city to the music school. She thought that there must be instruments there that could be purchased. Good afternoon. She entered the office of the director. Hello, he looked up at her. She outlined the situation to him, and he only smirked. Yes, of course, we have decommissioned tools, but I don't think they'll be any better than the one your boy has, he said. Who can I turn to? Dasha asked. Go to room 7. Alexander Ivanovich will see you there. He sent the visitor. She went to the office and knocked quietly and entered. The director sent me to you. He said that you can help me with the accordion. A young man was sitting on a chair near the window. He looked at the girl and smiled. As it turned out later, Alexander Ivanovich had recently graduated from the institute and had been working at the school for only a year and a half. He was very fond of his profession and was rooting for those he taught. Did your boy learn on his own? He wondered. Yes, his grandfather played a virtuoso on the accordion. Probably he showed the boy all the wisdom, suggested Dasha. I want to see him, said the young man. And how are we going to do it? Dasha already understood where this man was going. If you want, I can come to your village. It's not that far. The teacher was ready, if only he had a great musician. Of course, it can be done, but I can bring Zakhar here myself. Dasha offered him her option. I think if I see your boy on the spot, it will be better, as you know, native walls help. Alexander smiled at her. Good, then we are waiting for you. Come at any time. She turned around and wanted to go out. Wait, the teacher stopped her. Yes, she turned around. And who are you to this guy? He stood up and walked over to her. I work at the local club. I put on dances, and I have my own women's choir. Just recently, I found out about this boy. I decided that if he has his accordion, I can include him in the program. Dasha told me almost everything. She traveled to her village, and in a couple of weeks, Alexander Ivanovich was there. He had nowhere to stay, so Dasha offered him a couple of days to stay at her house. They came to the club, and Zakhar was also invited there. Alexander Ivanovich brought with him 2 accordions, one large and one medium. He took the large one in his hands and gave the medium one to the boy. Well, are you ready? He asked him. Ready, he replied when the boy played, and Alexander Ivanovich picked it up. It was so beautiful, the music just flowed. The boy, pressing the buttons, just smiled with all his teeth. His accordion, compared to this, was just junk. I want to take this boy for training, said Alexander Ivanovich, looking at Dasha. And how can you do this? Because he is still small, and he cannot go to the city. The girl did not understand. Then I will come to you on weekends and teach him. He is a very capable boy. I see that he can do a lot of things, so a little musical education and the boy will become a virtuoso. Alexander grasped the boy like the nugget that just needed to be worked on. Dasha was glad that she was able to help at least someone. Zakhar's parents thanked her. In the evening, they knocked on her wicket. When Dasha opened it, they were standing there with treats. Thank you so much. They looked at her. Oh, please, I just wanted to help develop the boy's talent. The girl couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Alexander Ivanovich, as promised, came to the village every weekend. He stayed at Dasha's house, as before. One day, he went to the club to rehearse with Zakhar, and Dasha heard a knock on the window. She looked out. It was a neighbor, Nadezhda Petrovna. The girl was glad to let her in the house. "Well, how are things going with you?" With a grin asked Nadezhda Petrovna. "Oh, everything is so good. Alexander promised to enroll Zakhar in some competition where they will go together. I hope the boy won't shame our village." Daria began to chirp. "That's not what I mean," the neighbor smiled. "What is it about?" Dasha immediately stopped. "How are things going with Alexander Ivanovich?" the neighbor asked conspiratorially. "Oh, come on. What business we have with him, where he is, and where I am?" Dasha rolled her eyes. "What are you talking about? Look at yourself. You're a beauty. You can do a lot. Look what you've made of our village. He should grab you and never let you go." Nadezhda Petrovna laughed. "Oh, I don't know. I like him, of course, but I don't think he'd be interested in some lady from a remote village." For some reason, the girl blushed. "Do not talk nonsense. Tonight we will gather a party in the village, and let him walk with us to see how you can work," said and stood up neighbor. Alexander returned home. He praised his pupil as usual. He told me about the competition and already imagined how they would take first place with him. "And we have a holiday in the village today," Dasha told him quietly. "What kind of holiday?" The teacher was surprised. "And simply, the women decided to gather and show what they can do," the girl honestly admitted. "Okay, I like holidays, if you don't mind. I'll stay one more night," he smiled. "No, I don't mind." She adjusted the tablecloth on the table. In the evening, the whole village went out. The women sang the songs that Dasha had set them. The young people danced, and Zakhar played the accordion. It was not the same melodies he had played for them before. When it got dark, Alexander and Dasha walked toward her house. "Daria, have you never wanted to move to the city?" he asked her. "No, you what? I like it here so much. I have a favorite job here. The team, where they are without me." She was embarrassed. "Then how would you like it if I moved in with you?" Suddenly he stopped, and Dasha's cheeks flamed. She turned to him and didn't know what to say. He did not even offer her anything, and now he just wants to move into her house. "Alexander Ivanovich, what kind of questions are these?" She did not understand. "Dasha, I liked you very much at first sight. I realized what initiative and punchy you are. After that, I couldn't help thinking about you." He hugged her sharply and pulled her to himself. Dasha was flattered by such attention, but she was still embarrassed. As they approached the house, she saw Nadezhda Petrovna watching them from the window. Dasha was embarrassed again. After that, Alexander came to their village a couple more times to watch and train Zakhar. Together, they went with him to the competition, but they did not take first place. They took only third. But that was also merit, and after that, Alexander just disappeared. "Well, where is your boyfriend?" Nadezhda Petrovna asked her. Dasha was very angry with this man. He seemed so intelligent and decent. And when she found out that she was expecting a child, he immediately disappeared. The girl even put aside her pride and went to college, but it turned out that he had quit there and left. Now she sat at the window in her house and thought about what she should do next. "Don't be upset, girl. Everyone loves you in the village. We will bring up your child," her neighbor said to her. "I'll bring him up myself. It's just a shame that there are such people. Look what he was like. Tears began to drip from my eyes." "Everything will be all right," Nadezhda Petrovna only told her. Even pregnant Dasha delivered letters. She smiled at people. She knew that many people in the village began to whisper about her, but she tried not to pay attention to it. Some parents took their children out of her dance class because they thought she might have a bad influence on them, but the ones who stayed continued to dance. "So Daria, you need to go to the hospital," Nadezhda Petrovna told her when she saw that Dasha sometimes felt sick. "I'm fine," the pregnant woman assured her. "It's better to leave now and have a normal birth there than to wait until everything starts and not have time," her older friend advised her. This time Dasha listened to her, and she went to the city. And indeed, 3 days later labor began, and Dasha's long-awaited son Vladimir was born. She returned to the village not alone, but with her child. Everyone who loved and respected the girl began to help her. Someone brought diapers, someone brought a crib, someone brought a mattress, a stroller, and many other things. The girl was very grateful to these people. "Well, can you manage on your own?" Nadezhda Petrovna came to her in the evening. "I will try, of course, but I don't even know." Dasha tried to bathe the child. Nadezhda was standing next to her, advising, helping, and telling her how to do everything. "You can always count on me," she said to Dasha. "If you need to sit with the boy, I'm ready." Nadezhda Petrovna had no children, so she probably took Dasha as her daughter. Vovka grew up. Here he is already dancing in the group, which is led by his mother. He went to kindergarten and was about to go to school. "Mom, why do you never buy me clothes? I have to wear what people bring you," asked her boy when he was in middle school. "Vovachka, you understand. Sometimes there are such situations that there is no money at all," she tried to correctly explain to her son. And indeed, when she lived alone and worked at the post office, her salary was meager, but she had enough. She didn't need anything. But now, when the child appeared, every day he asked for one thing or another. Money became scarce. Vovka started to get angry with his mother because other kids had something and he didn't. "Don't pay any attention to it. The boy is just going through puberty," the neighbor told her. I want to give him more than I have. What am I going to do?" Daria sobbed. "So stop crying, let's think," Nadezhda Petrovna told her. "And what is there to think about?" Daria continued to cry. "Tomorrow we'll go with you to the district center and buy chickens. You'll raise a chicken farm, collect eggs, and sell them at the market. No matter what, it's still money," the woman told her. "And where will I get money for chickens?" Dasha could not understand. "I'll lend you the money for the chickens. I think you'll pay it back quickly," her neighbor reassured her. They bought 50 chickens, and Dasha's life began to change. She had to get up early in the morning to feed the bird, go to the market, sell eggs, then run to work. She bought a few cows, then some more. The farm grew, and the profits grew. Yes, money began to appear, and not bad. Half of the eggs Dasha sold, and half left for incubation, so that more and more other birds appeared. And now, Vovka goes to school in new shoes with a new briefcase. He got his soccer ball, and the boy was happy, but his demands began to increase. He needed a scooter or a bicycle. Dasha now had money, but she could not afford so much, so she had to refuse her son. "I'll finish school and go to the city," the boy told her. "Good, you'll get a job there. You'll graduate, go to work. Everything will be fine." His mother tried to stroke his head, but he wouldn't let her. After that, Dasha cried bitterly at night. Why God had prepared such a fate for her? At the graduation, Vladimir was in a beautiful new suit, which his mother bought him. He stood there glowing with happiness, but not because he had finished school. He was happy that tomorrow he would leave this wilderness for the city. The boy entered the technical college. He wanted to graduate soon and start working so that he could have his own money. He did not want to live in a dormitory and asked his mother to rent him an apartment. His mother, of course, went along with him and did what he asked. And then it started. Gotta buy those jeans. Gotta buy a new record player. Another, and another. Vova didn't know how his mother lived in the village, but he asked her for more and more. In spring, when there was only a month left till the end of his studies, he saw her in the street. She was standing on the bridge, all dressed up in such a smart dress. Vovka wanted so much to approach her, but he did not know how to do it. The girl felt that she was being looked at and looked back. Vovka saw her smile at him and waved back. She walked over on her own. "Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked him. "Just because you're pretty," the guy answered honestly. He saw that the girl was not embarrassed in the slightest. She probably gets told that a lot. "Thank you," she replied simply. "Let's go for a walk." Vovka took a risk, thinking that he would not be hit in the forehead for suggesting something. "Come on," she agreed. The guy wanted to jump with joy at that moment, but he restrained himself. They walked along the bridge. He could not find a topic for conversation, thinking about himself, about music, about studies, about what to talk to this beauty. "Are you a local?" Finally, he asked. "Yes," she was surprised. "Why do you ask that?" She turned to him. "It's just that I can't find a topic to talk about." The guy was confused. "We can just talk about the weather," the girl suggested. "Okay, let's talk about the weather." Vovka did not know what to talk about. She captivated him so much that all the words slipped out of his head. "Let's go sit in the park," suggested the girl. "Let's go," agreed Vova. "Let's at least get acquainted." "Olya," she held out her hand. "Vova," he shook her hand in return. They sat down on a bench. The guy just sat and squirmed in place. He could not believe that he was now next to such a beauty as she. "Where do you study?" she asked. "At the technical school." Vova was embarrassed that he studied not in the institute. "And where did you come from?" The girl asked the next question. "I came from another city," the guy lied. "And you live in a dormitory." Olya was curious about everything. "No, I rent an apartment," he answered proudly. "Do you rent it yourself or your parents?" She was surprised. "Of course, myself. Not only did I study, but I also work part-time." He lied to her as usual. "I see, so you'll be able to give gifts," the girl said mercantilistically. "Gifts? What gifts?" Did not understand the guy. "I'll wait for you tomorrow, at the same place." She jumped up from the bench and went somewhere quickly. Vova sat and did not know what to think. In the evening, he was at home, and all assumed what Olga thought about him, what impressions she had left. The guy decided that he should buy a ring for her. They met a couple more times. On the weekend, he went to his mother's village and said that he needed so much money to buy a ring for his favorite girl. "Have you got a girlfriend?" Dasha asked him. "Yes," he answered calmly. The mother went and took the money out of the box. She realized that she would have to give everything. But for the sake of her son, she was ready for it. She sighed and handed the boy the money. He took it, jumped up from his chair, didn't even say thank you, and ran out of the house. On his next date with Olga, he presented her with a ring. She was very happy. She didn't even ask where he got it. He said he worked, so he earned it and bought it. Olga and Vova started dating. When she came to introduce him to her parents, he lied to them again. That he had already graduated from technical school, and now he had a job, and soon he was going to buy an apartment. "Once you buy it, you can propose to your daughter," her mother said. Vova rushed back to the village. He begged his mother to give him money for an apartment, but she only waved her hands. Where could she get so much money? Then Vovka took offense at her for life. He ran away from home and slammed the doors. He came to town and told his fiancée that he could not buy an apartment yet because things were not so good. The guy was too lazy to work, but it had to be done. He got a job at a local factory, and they paid him pennies, but he had enough to pay for rent. Olga moved in with him, and while they lived with her in a civil marriage. "When will you introduce me to your parents?" Olga once asked. "Never," Vladimir answered her. The girl looked at him, thought that he is not in the mood now, and did not bother. "Nadezhda Petrovna, what have I done?" Daria came to her neighbor. She was sitting in her kitchen crying. "I don't know. If I hadn't taken part in the boy's upbringing, I might have said something. But he had everything. How could Vova do that?" The woman pitied her friend. After the guy asked his mother for money for an apartment, it's been almost a year. He never came and did not call. And the couple didn't live very well in the city. "Are you going to propose to me at all?" Olga asked. "Of course, I'll just earn a little," assured her young man. Olga believed him and waited. They had to make a criminal deal to earn money for a new ring. Vladimir was lucky. This time everything went well. He didn't want to do it anymore. He didn't have the courage. "Darling, will you be my wife?" In the evening, he got down on his knee and held out a beautiful ring. "I should have called my parents," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "We can go to them right now," he suggested. "Okay, the young people started to pack. Hello, Vladimir greeted his future relatives. Why didn't you warn me? Olga's mother was a strict woman. Look, Vova asked me to get married. She showed the woman a ring. So we never waited for the apartment, her mother smirked. At the table, there was a lot of talk about where and what kind of wedding the young people would make. And why are your relatives not here? Asked the girl's father. Because they don't exist at all, the boy lied once again. I don't get it, the father frowned. I'm an orphanage kid. Vladimir continued to tell untruths. Why did you keep silent before? Turned to his future wife. Wait, so those who were brought up in an orphanage should be provided with housing, Oli's father remembered. There's something wrong with the documents. I didn't think that this topic would start to develop. Having somehow waited until the end of the evening, Vova and Olya went home. The next day, the guy told the girl that he was being sent on a business trip. At work, he took a day at his own expense. He decided to go to his mother to ask for money for the wedding. To her, he could confess that he had nothing. He thought his mother had waited for him for a long time and forgiven him, and that's what he'd play on. Is anyone home? He entered the house where he had spent his entire childhood. Vovachka, his mother, ran out to meet him. She hugged him and started kissing him. Don't do that. He wrinkled his nose and pulled away from the woman. Why didn't you come for so long? She went into the room with her son. Mom, I have a wedding coming up. I need money, he said simply. Sure, how much? She was already standing by her sideboard. As much as there is, and it was not a question. Daria pulled a normal wad of money out of the jewelry box and handed it to her son. I have to go, he stood up. How, you're not even staying the night? The woman was surprised. I can't. He pulled on his sweater and walked toward the exit. Tears filled Daria's eyes again. What? He came for money again, and that's it? Nadezhda came in right after Vova left. Aha, Dasha exhaled. Why do you spoil him so much? The neighbor couldn't understand. She would have put him in his place a long time ago. I can't, my son. Daria rubbed her handkerchief in her hands. Vladimir returned to town satisfied. He put the money on the table. What is it? The bride was surprised. Money for the wedding. I got a bonus at work, he said. Now there's enough for everything, for the dress and the restaurant. Olya was happy, and Vova only needed it. The guests, there were Olya's parents, and everything went very well. The whole evening Vladimir was tense. He was afraid that suddenly his mother would show up and spoil everything. But this did not happen, so at night, the guy relaxed. Olya was happy. They were given so many gifts that she could not help but rejoice. Beloved, maybe we'll go on a trip. Olya counted the money received from the guests and relatives. Okay, if you want so much. He was ready with her at least to the ends of the earth. The young went on vacation. They stayed there for a week, but it was enough for both of them. Now it was necessary to become serious, but Vova could not gather himself. He was still reluctant to do anything. Don't you think you haven't had any bonuses for a long time? The wife asked her husband. Olga worked on her own, and her parents helped her. If she wanted something expensive, her husband, of course, could not afford it, so she asked her father. They lived together for 10 years, and then Vova got bored. He worked at his factory for pennies. The family held on by word of honor. They had no children. Vladimir, hello. A young girl intern came up to him one day. What can I do for you? He was always dissatisfied with something. I'm new here. Can you give me a tour of the plant? I could tell she was flirting. Irina? He read her name on the badge that hung in her pocket. Yes, she nodded. Good, let's go. Vova was ready to do anything, just not to work. After this excursion, they met a couple more times, and on the third Ira became Vladimir's mistress right in the back room where they were changing clothes. Daria, are you home? Nadezhda came to her. Yes, come in, the woman said. Nadezhda Petrovna had been retired for a long time. Her back was very sore, and Dasha was giving her injections. Maybe stop working, go on a well-deserved vacation, said Nadezhda to her friend. Dasha had long passed the retirement age, but she was not going to leave her job. She still raised chickens and worked at the post office. There was no energy left for the club. There was only the choir, in which now she participated. No, what if Vaffa comes? What will I give him then? I was always taking care of my big-aged son. Stop thinking about him, for once think about yourself, sighed the neighbor. I want to sell the house and the whole household, said Daria suddenly. What are you doing, and where are you going? Nadezhda didn't understand. Vavachka has long asked me to buy him an apartment. I'll sell everything, I'll have money left, and I'll buy a small house for myself, the woman reasoned. How can the earth carry such fools? Nadia splashed her hands, and what should I do, how to earn his forgiveness, did not understand the woman. After her friend left, she thought about her decision all night, still decided. The very next day she put her house and household up for sale. She kept a few chickens for herself. Nadia, help me look for some inexpensive hut, she asked her friend. Over the years the village had grown a little. For some reason, city businessmen had taken a liking to this place and started building their summer houses. Good, she went outside. Let's go to Petrovich. He practically doesn't live in his house. Maybe he'll sell it to you. They came to the man, who really for the third year already moved to the city with the children. After a little talk, he agreed to sell his house. That was the deal. Dasha's house didn't stay on the market for long either. A week later, 2 foreign cars arrived. Men walked through the yard and looked inside. They whispered about something. Thank you, it suits us, said one of them and held out an envelope. Thank you for your promptness. The woman clutched the money to her chest. Dasha moved to her new home and sent the money to her son. She wrote that it was to buy an apartment. When Vova received a huge sum of money, he didn't realize what had happened at first. But then, when he read the message, he smiled. His mother felt guilty. Although he was walking away from Olga, he was not going to leave her. Here, dear, finally, we can buy ourselves an apartment. He put the bills on the table. Beloved, it had been a long time since she had said such words to him. They chose a place to live, bought it, and now they had to do the interior decoration. Ola was helped by her mother. And I thought he would never fulfill his promise, she told her daughter. You see, and you said he was a liar. Olya had been thinking about divorce lately. Her husband often didn't come home. He could drink, and he stopped paying attention to her. But after the recent events, she changed her mind. In the new apartment, life began anew. Vova even left Irina for a while. He and his wife started their honeymoon again. They felt young again. What a fool I was. Olga lay in the arms of her husband. We are both good, he kissed her. The next 5 years were a happy life. Olga somehow felt sick. She realized what could happen, immediately went to the pharmacy and bought a test. What children? Vladimir was surprised at the time. Honey, I wanted this child so much. She begged, but her husband did not understand how at 40 and a little it is possible to give birth. We will take the child to the 1st grade, and we will retire, he shouted at her. The wife was silent. She just sat and cried. That evening, Vova did not come home for the night, and the next day too. He was gone for a week. So did it help that you sent him money? Nadia asked her friend. Dasha now lived in a small one-room house, but she had enough room for herself. What do you think? Asked the former neighbor. I think we should go to him. Maybe something's wrong, Daria said. Do you think he would be happy to see you? She asked. I don't know. As it will be, so it will be, Daria shrugged. She got ready, and Nadezhda saw her off. The woman had not been in the city for a long time. Everything had changed a lot there. After buying the apartment, her son sent her the address where they now lived. Daria occasionally sent money. She went to the door. It was already evening outside. Rang the bell. Footsteps were heard outside the door. Who? Came Vova's voice. Son, it's me. I've come to visit you, said the mother joyfully. He quickly opened the door and went out onto the landing. What are you doing here? He hissed at the woman. To see how you've settled down. You've been living for so many years. At least you'd come to visit. The woman began to grumble. Here, buy your return ticket and go back to your village. He shoved money into her hand. I don't need your money. I have enough myself. She tried to shove the bill back into his hand. Buy, don't write or call, and most importantly, don't come. He slipped into the apartment and closed the door. Who was there? Olga asked. She and her husband had never agreed on a child. Olga decided that if Vladimir was against it, she would file for divorce, and in the meantime, she would live with her parents. No one, the man answered sharply. Olga became curious. She looked out the window, and a thin woman came out of the house. She threw on her coat and ran out of the entrance behind her. When she saw her getting into a cab, she got into another one and followed her. Hello, you don't know me, but you've just come to visit us. Olga caught up with her only at the station. Are you Olga? Daria guessed. Yes, the woman was surprised. And I'm Daria, Vladimir's mother, she said calmly, tears streaming from her eyes. How's your mother? Silence hung in the air. They sat down on a bench, and Daria began to tell Ola about her son. She didn't say that he had never said anything about her to anyone. She said how he came then and asked for a ring, then for a wedding, and now she sent for an apartment. Wow, and I lived with this scoundrel for so many years. Olga clutched her head. What are you, daughter? He was doing good for you, hugged her mother-in-law. I am now expecting a child, and he is forcing me to have an abortion. Almost an ultimatum, or divorce or abortion, complained daughter-in-law. And what do you think? She did not want to interfere in their affairs. I want to give birth. The sobbing started again. So give birth. Here, you have enough money for everything. The woman put a folded pack of bills into Olga's hand. Thank you for your support. Olga stood up and hugged the woman. Come with me. They got into a cab again and drove to the address where Olga's parents lived. Here, meet Vladimir's mother, my mother-in-law, she said in the hallway when the parents clapped their eyes. He's an orphan, isn't he? Shouted the father. What do you mean, an orphanage? Daria clutched at her heart. Don't be upset. He's been deceiving you and us all his life. Her sister-in-law hugged her once again. You can spend the night at our place, and we'll see you off in the morning, the woman offered. Thank you. Daria knew that there were no more buses today. The women sat in the kitchen and talked for a long time. When Daria left, Olga didn't tell her husband anything. The very next day, she filed for divorce and division of property. Since she was pregnant, she got most of the apartment. Vladimir had no choice, either to give Ola the housing and get compensation for his part or to sell the apartment and give his wife money. Probably he thought that the latter option would be better. Olga gave birth after being divorced, and she never saw her husband again. But her daughter had two charming grandmothers. One of them lived in the city, and they went to the other one on vacation for the whole time.